Hello, everyone. Here we are again in the Curfew Lime. And today, Deborah Grant, Master Chatter of Chatter House Audio Tours, have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Miss Krystle Howell. Well, I'm really looking forward to this
Morning.
session because this session, by the way, is going to be slightly different to all the others because I want to know who Krystle Howell is. And I'm sure some of you may have the same feeling. Well, the first time I heard about this person, Krystle Hall, was actually on Facebook, and she was doing a very detailed critique of the Auditor General's report. And I was wondering, who is this girl that has time to sit down and go through this thing in such a detail and explain it to us all in simple language? And I was like, wait a minute, okay. But that was that. Then I would see her popping up here and there in various activities. Then I had the pleasure of having her on the executive that I served on last January, last February actually, right. And then she had to leave us because of her other tasks took over. And I thought that that would keep her quiet, but I'm seeing her even busier now. So, Krystle, where did you get the passion from to be the Krystle that we know? Where did it all start for you?
That's a very difficult question because it's like asking when did you realize you're a woman or when did you realize you wanted to be an accountant? We're both accountants as well. We share that in common.
Yes.
But I I guess I think I would probably say secondary school because most people may not know I was actually extremely shy and withdrawn when I was in primary and secondary school. But then one day I said, you know what? Being shy and withdrawn and scared of every little thing is not going to get me anywhere in life. So I need to figure out how to change this persona that I have and to become more bold. I was one of those children that was left at school for really long hours. So I used that opportunity to join every single club that scared me. So I joined drum club, key club, debating club, everything that forced me to come out of my shell and interact with people because my natural inclination is to be to myself and to speak and to interact and to get out of my shell. So I would say that was probably the start. And the, I guess, helping persons part, the activities I was in also like Girl Guides, and I was in so many clubs. I don't know how I was in so many clubs, but I was in a lot, and they would have you going to like the hospital to help read to persons who were sick, or if we like there was a Rotaract and these different kind of things that would help you to be able to become more empathetic because it shows you what people are really going through. And when you take the time to listen to people's stories, it's so easy to broad brush everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And when you listen to the individual stories and you hear what people go through, it makes you stop and pause and realize that not everybody's a delinquent. Not everybody is trying to be ignorant or to break the law or to do a lot of the things that we get upset with people for.
Yes.
So it causes you to pause and to try to see how you can use what you have to help other people. No matter how bad the situation is with you, I think you can always help somebody else. It does not always have to be money. And for a lot of years, I help persons by giving of my time because I grew up very poor, but I always had time. So that was what I gave. And the difference that you can make in one person's life, I've had many persons give of their time to me and help me. I wanted to be able to do that for somebody else. So
yeah,
it
great.
just
So
expanded into.
your currency was not money. Your currency is time, which I
Yeah.
would say you've used very, very well. But before that time in secondary school where you wanted to come out of your shell, it is easy for you to say that that was the reason why you came out of your shell, but there must have been something inside of you before that could come out. And where do you think that that came from? Were you, in terms of your home environment, do you think it was a case of you wanted to be what am I searching for? The moral standards or whatever that was set for you at home is what drove that, or the things that you saw around you that you didn't want is what drove that? I'm seeing my internet saying it's unstable, so I'm hoping we'll be able to make it through. Right? Is it what you saw around? Like for example, for myself, well, in my home, I didn't see domestic violence. I saw it around me in my neighborhood, and it kind of made me aware that this is not good enough, and this is something then that I kind of got really passionate about in terms of being against it and speaking out for those who are not strong enough. So is that the same type of environment then that you think might have molded you into being able to then go into all these groups to bring yourself to the groups?
Well, I'll share a little bit from the last Thorn Commission meeting that I would have chaired before we went into COVID, and it was at Passage Road Pavilion. And that one meant a lot to me because it was literally about 5 minutes from where I grew up, because I lived in Chapman Lane when we were growing up. And I went to school at Westbury Primary School. So it was a chance to get to interact with persons that if I had stayed in that neighborhood, these are the kind of people that would have been my neighbors. And hearing their stories about what caused them to be able to be more than what their neighborhood was, more than the things that people expect those neighborhoods to be, resonated with me. The teachers in particular, primary school teachers, for me, at my time, I graduated in '95. Those teachers were a huge influence in seeing what life could be, and seeing it as being more than what you were living.
Right.
I in a home with a father who was physically abusive to my mother, so I saw violence every day.
Mm-hmm.
And having teachers show you that there could be another way,
Mm-hmm.
it was invaluable.
Yeah.
That's why it really bothers me when persons see it as somebody else's role to do this and somebody else's role to do that. We do not know how much of an influence your role, your small role, could have in changing the trajectory of somebody's life. You may not be the parent, you may not be the teacher, you may just be the conductor in the van.
Yes.
You could be the person selling fruit on the road. Your interactions with some person could change the way their life is supposed to go. So if not for the teachers that we had, and back then parents listened to teachers a lot more than they do now. So they had a big influence in how they interact with us as well too. That made a huge difference. And going to that meeting and hearing persons crying out for that same thing, because it's not as active as it was in my time. They're begging for persons in those communities to have that same infrastructure set up again, to have that same focus, give the young persons something that can help them to know that they are more than just their circumstances at home.
Yes.
And that would be the influence to me, and that's what I am hoping to have as an influence for other persons as well.
Okay. I want to say here that when I asked the question and I made that particular reference point, that came strictly off what I would say strictly off the cuff. And then to hear how real and authentic you were in terms of sharing your story. For those persons who know me would know that I'm struggling right now to make sure I don't cry right here now. So I'm going to have to really pull myself in here before I become. So we're supposed to be having fun. I'm not supposed to start crying.
We can say on a fun topic. I've cried enough for both of us in our lifetime, so you don't need to cry. It's fine.
Right. But no, really and truly, this is the stories that we need to tell, because as you said, in last week, I think it was one of the Facebook COVID tasks was to write something that you're going to tell me something about myself if I put my name under your status or whatever. So I did it with the first person, and they came back and they told me some things, and I said, yeah, we met there, and then they told me something else, and I was like, no, I don't remember that happening. I think you might have me mixed up with someone else. And then they came back and gave me the details. And then I said, you know what? You have to be careful because you've been making so much an impact on people's lives that you don't recognize, right? And the same thing happened then for the next person. So for you, you talk about how the teacher has made an impact and so forth on your life, but I don't want you to miss the point of what an impact you are making on other people's lives. Not only, and don't think that it is only persons younger than yourself. I want you to know that there are persons older than you who you're making an impact on. So there are two things I want us to talk about now. One, I find that your role in the Torn Commission is like, I was like, they couldn't find a more perfect person to be part of that commission, as in terms of a young person and your expansive involvement. And then the other thing is, how on earth do you do it all? So you can determine how you're going to answer them. Because I need some tips, okay? I seriously need some tips. So I think I'm going to get a notebook and start writing.
The Thorn Commission was the one I was probably the most skeptical about, because everything else that I am involved in is very neutral in terms of it is not political. The entire focus is on how do I help people. And I remember when I got the invitation and I saw the other names, I was like, I don't even know who half of these people are. How do I know that they weren't just people that the bees picked out that are going to just say yes to everything? And do I really want to do this? And I had a lot of back and forth discussion with people that I'm close to. And Adrian Green is one of the persons I would have definitely spoken to. And we always have these discussions because the question always comes up. If you do it, you're going to be seen as political. But if you don't do it, that means somebody who's definitely political is going to be doing it, which is going to defeat the whole purpose of anything that the government is trying to do in an attempt to not be political.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I'll try it. And if it is something that is strongly political, I'll just withdraw.
Yeah.
If it's something I can see that I can make a difference in, that's exactly what I'm going to try to do. Because as much as I would prefer to just operate in my one corner and know that I can control the narrative, I can only go so far if I operate by myself.
Yeah.
That's why I collaborate with CBC, that's why I collaborate with the nation, that's why I collaborate with larger entities, ICAB, IIA, all the other things I'm involved with, because I know my one voice by itself can only go so far.
Excellent.
I was hoping that this partnership, and it's completely voluntary, everybody that you see on the Thorn Commission is there on a volunteer basis.
Good.
Not being paid, which I know a lot of persons think that we are, but we're not.
That's good.
So far, when I went, we had some kind of like, eventually you had these side meetings and you're realizing everybody that's on it is feeling the exact same way. And they're wondering who exactly here is the political person. And so far there's only one definitively.
Okay.
But majority of the persons are feeling the exact same way that I feel. How do we make sure this thing does not get highly political? Because at some point,
yes,
you're going to have to hand over to whoever the different communities vote for.
Right.
And at that point, we are trying everything in our power to make sure that the persons in the community understand, please do not vote for anybody for political reasons. Vote for who you think can help your community.
Yes.
My message, that is what I am pushing. That's what I'm trying to educate people about.
Yes.
Because if you have persons who have a vested interest in your community growing, it will work. The financing will come.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, not everything has to be reexamined because of COVID. COVID threw a huge wrench in everything. But at the heart of it, we have persons who are hammering out all the details in terms of how exactly it will work, the mechanics of it, everything else. But at the heart of it, it's about communities helping communities.
Yes, yes. And I really did, I got that passion from that meeting I went to. And I think that's why I really like, that's why I mentioned the point that I think it was really valuable to have you on, because that's what I got from you as the chair, that you're trying to make it neutral and trying to make it
Yes.
our thing and not a political party one way or the other. And because of that, I'm drawn to it, because like you, I want to see the community, I want to see the best of everyone in the community and communities working together. And we really, I mean, the partisan things in the entire world is pretty much destroying the world. So let us change that narrative and let us go back to the community to build back up the world. And I mean, what better time than now? I really believe in the COVID and the curfews and what we're being called to do on a local level, even going to shop at the local shops, kind of brings back that local community and looking out for your neighbor and that type of stuff. And we can see that as a stepping stone back in that direction as far as what the intentions of the commission are.
That's why we were really sorry it wasn't this happened, because I think like little mini governments would have really helped in terms of getting certain communities organized in terms of how they're going to go about with their response at that level. Because it's one thing to set policy at the high level. It's another thing to execute it by each community. Every community we've been to has been so different and their needs are different. So you put a policy in place for a country, it's not going to work for St. Andrews, it's not going to work for St. Michael, it's not going to work for St. George, it might work for St. James, it might work for this parish. So if those were in place, I think it would have really helped, especially the vulnerable in the community, because one of the sections was dedicated to helping the most vulnerable in the community. And this is really been great. But so far, Barbadians hopefully have been using their informal channels to be able to help those persons, but that's a hope. And that's not organized, and you're not completely sure if you've captured everybody. So this was to formalize everything. But at this point, we can only hope for the best, hope that persons are aware of all the hotlines they can call if they're in trouble, hope those hotlines work, and that the persons who need the help are already getting it. But we'll see what happens after.
Right. So we don't want it to be so much about the Thorn Commission, but we just say that we hope that this would be one of the launch pads for when you come back out to keep pushing that. So down to my second one, how do you find the time to do all of this stuff that you do? You're involved in ICAB. You're not just involved in ICAB, but you're in this committee, and then you do that, and you do the next, and you make sure we are informed about this. We're informed about that. And for those who don't know, ICAB is the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados, of which both of us are members. Yeah. So how do you get that done? And you still have to go home to your significant other, and you still have to take care of you and your girls' time out and all that kind of stuff. How do you get it all done?
Yeah. What my rule is, well, for the last 3 years, my rule had been to just say yes to everything. I don't know why I came up with that rule, but that was just something I decided, let me just say yes to everything. I live by my calendar as well. So everything goes into my calendar, because if I do not put it in, I will forget.
Right.
So even for this, I had it in my calendar, I had a reminder to go off. It's how I know if to say yes or no to something.
Right.
So if I get involved in anything and I realize that it is taking up too much time on my calendar or threatening other things that I'm involved with, I have to withdraw. Even if I initially thought it was something that I could do, I can't jeopardize the other things that I've committed to, because I already made a commitment to have this done. So I know it sounds like a lot. A lot of people think it's a lot, and it looks like a lot on paper, but if I break it down piece by piece, it actually, it really isn't. So Monday mornings, for those who don't know, is my segment on CBC Morning Barbados.
Barbados.
And
Yes.
I've been doing that since last year.
Yes.
And I would say for 90% of those sessions, I figured out what I wanted to say when I got to the studio. So maybe the night before, I would have a topic in mind and a theme, but for the most part, I would just go. If I think the theme that I want to do might be better portrayed with some graphics or something like that, I might go and look it up so that I can share that as well. But for the most part, it's sharing from my personal experience being in external audit, because I used to work for Ernst & Young for almost 7 years, and my experience as the internal auditor at Sagicor. So I remember the first time I started teaching at Ernst & Young, and they asked for volunteers, and I volunteered, and I kept asking, where are the materials, where are the materials? So myself and my manager that have volunteered, we were like, where are the materials? And then the Friday before we were supposed to teach on the Monday, they dropped this binder that was like, my manager looked at me and she was panicking. And I said, there is no way, no one can expect us to read this entire thing by Monday, which means whatever is in there, I must already know the answers.
Okay.
I just went through it. I marked off where you would have to bring in any activities you would have to share. And that was it. I realized as long as you know the material, better not to memorize and read, because it comes off less authentic.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not saying you do no preparation.
Right.
But unless you are, and if you are speaking on a topic you're not familiar with, you might want to rethink that.
Yes.
Because again, when people have questions, how are you going to answer them if
Right.
that isn't something you've memorized?
Right. You haven't had an intimate knowledge of. Yes.
Correct. So from doing that, because as I told her, if we're teaching persons who now come into the firm, and I'm a senior and you're a manager, and there's something that a new person is going to ask us that we don't know, something is wrong. Yeah. And if that does happen, there's no shame. I've always said this, there's no shame in saying, that's a good question. Don't know the answer right now, but I'll get back to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's always a good response.
That works. You do not have to be a walking encyclopedia.
Exactly. That takes some of the pressure off for you to remember the things that you really do know.
Correct. So I haven't written for the nation in a while, because I guess every now and then, in between changing of editors, you get dropped off, and then you realize your emails are not being responded to anymore. But before that, for me, writing a piece between 500 to 700 words doesn't take more than an hour.
Okay.
And again, you're writing about topics that you're familiar with, or something that really sparks interest. And even when you see something on Facebook, it doesn't take an hour for most people to write a lengthy Facebook post. So again, that doesn't take a lot of time either. On the ICAB Communications Committee, at this point, I try to make sure I keep the Instagram and Facebook and everything up to date, and the secretariat is great for that.
Yes.
I send out the material, and I try to put it in a
great secretariat. I just wanted to be said, a great secretariat.
So they come up with a lot of the material, because it's not that I'm taking it on myself to speak on behalf of ICAB. Anytime you hear me speak for ICAB, I've already passed it by the president or the Kathy Ann Hewitt, the executive
director. Yes.
Because although I have a general idea what I can say, I can promote that I'm on ICAB's communications committee. But if it's something in terms of formal communication, I'm going to go through them first.
Yes, of course.
So again, that is kind of in between here and there. And if we do get back to doing the newsletter, find it again to do an article and then to pull together everything. That does not take a significant amount of time either.
Right. Okay.
Then I'm also on Integrity Group Barbados, and that does not take a lot of time either. We meet about once a month.
Okay.
And we have subcommittees, and having subcommittees really helps because then you're only called to contribute when your committee is required to contribute. So major things I would have done for them was having a written response to the integrity legislation when it was originally put out to the public.
Yes.
Myself, Alicia Archer, Beverly Warren, rest in peace. She was another significant contributor to that paper. And I think there were 2 others who would have contributed, and we would have put together our contributions and submitted it. And we would also been on the subcommittee that helped with the last town hall that we would have had.
Okay.
And then we tried to come up with other initiatives to try to push forward integrity in Barbados. How do we want to shape that? How do we want the interactions we have with government to be? So having meetings and consultations with key persons to try to see what changes we can implement. And as expected, because it's not always going to be a high priority, there's always going to be some pushback. But there are lots of people in there trying to help and trying to push. So again, as I said, does not take up a lot of time, but when I am called, the last thing I would have done for them, now remembering, I would have represented them on the panel when we had the Regathering series in St. Lucie.
Okay.
So in January, would have gone all the way up to St. Lucie, and I would have moderated a panel on ethics and governance. Can't remember the exact title.
Okay.
And what that was like in small communities. So I remember Cynthia Barrow-Girls, Ambassador David Commichon, and 2 others, Tennyson Joseph, and 1 other person was on that panel. So
okay.
They asked for a representative from Integrity Group Barbados. So 2 of us were there to represent. So again, these are one-off occasions where you're called out. So it's not like I'm constantly filling my calendar.
Okay. It certainly feels that way. I don't know. I don't know when people listen to this, how they're going to feel. But even listening to this, something I was like, oh, God, that is so much, because for you, it's coming so natural. But for another person, it's a lot of heavy stuff in a sense. So it seems that it's a lot. But like when you say it's going to take you an hour to write you, it don't take you an hour to write this, and this thing doesn't take you an hour to do. And for some people, it would actually take them days to actually put down the quality of product that you put out. Okay, we're coming close to our half an hour moment, but something came to mind as you talk about all your different involvement. There seems to be a trend going. Would you say that you're the gatekeeper? Would you consider yourself a gatekeeper?
That is your role of auditors. It sometimes feels where you're the in-between person between the businesses and what goes out there to the public. So people is a position of trust.
Yeah.
Trust when they get their financial statements. If an auditor said these are good, then they're good.
Yeah.
They're not perfect because we can't test everything. We don't have that capacity.
Yes.
But they feel better knowing that.
Stop. Can you just repeat that last part? Because I'm sure there are persons out there who are convinced, and accountants cannot capture everything either.
Oh.
We are always hearing things like, oh, but the accountant did this and the auditor did. We cannot capture the fact that you went down the street and bought something and didn't pass it through the books at all, unless someone saw something and it triggered something else. So we need to reiterate that auditors cannot test every single thing.
I tell people all the time, if you have been operating 52 weeks in a year, 365 days minus weekends, bank holidays, how are we going to come in 2 weeks or 2 months and retest all of that? So we do a lot of samples, and it's statistically calculated that if you have a sample of X size and it comes up fine, chances are that's good, but it's not a guarantee.
Yes.
But in the court system and everywhere else, it's understood that once we followed our rules and everything went according to plan, then you have reasonable assurance that this is good. And that applies to everything else I'm doing. I feel as though it's sometimes like people feel better when they heard I looked at it and it was fine. And again, I know people might feel daunted when they hear me say it only took an hour, it only took this. That hour came after 15 years of work experience. So it's not like I woke up, I was able to know what account is like or what auditing is like or whatever. I've had so many mentors, I've had so many persons invest in me.
Yes.
Individual, and what you see is just a manifestation of that. And it, because of all the other things that got involved in the public speaking and everything else, like most accountants, I'm comfortable with public speaking.
Yeah.
Accountants are not. The stereotype for accountants is very true. I find most accountants are very reserved individuals, especially the older generation. And
Now,
even
look how you're going to get me in trouble for this interview now. Look, we were going so well. You have now targets.
You're as old as you feel. You are as old as you feel. So
No, I'm not saying for me because I'm putting myself in your category because I have no problem speaking. But I'm just saying that there are some, I mean, there is a great degree of truth to what you're saying. And maybe that is the reason why you probably stood out, because here you are as a young person and you're willing to speak because you felt comfortable speaking, when others really should have been speaking before because they have the knowledge to guide. So that's something that we probably should. I'm happy that it's changing because you're hearing more and more. ICAP coming out saying more stuff. You're coming out saying more stuff. There are other accountants out there who are coming out and speaking out. But we have a long way to go to catch up from the years of silence. Then we have the knowledge, but we were, I don't want to say afraid to speak, but we weren't expected to speak. I will put it that way.
I think the other problem too was the two things I saw as the problem. I'll speak for accountants and not for everybody.
Right.
It was the audience they were speaking to.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we've been having seminars, for instance, about the Auditor General's report for forever, but it's always been to an audience of peers.
Yes.
And then when you speak to the public does not know half of our terms. If you live with persons and you do the accounting speak, if they have not looked at you like you're weird, then they're an accountant too. But we use so many acronyms and we use so much terminology that the average don't understand. And I live with persons who would look at me and tell me, I don't understand what you're talking about. Okay. And it forces you to speak in a way they would
understand. Yes.
And if you surround yourself with persons who are like you, you get so comfortable with that way of speaking, you do not realize. And then when you try to change it up, it's unnatural.
Yes.
So that is the first problem. And then the second problem is how comfortable people are with public speaking. They really, really didn't have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of speaking out in public is like to find the Venn diagram of persons who are knowledgeable and comfortable speaking out in public. That intersection is so small. So it's not that we don't have the knowledge to share. And then even those who do speak out, I know many who do, they're not effective because the style that they have,
yes.
It is very textbookish or very dry, or it doesn't resonate with people, unfortunately.
And that's one thing that when you came out, when I saw your the first piece that I saw of you on Facebook with the Auditor General, you were not sitting at a desk with these big books and going through. I think you were like lounging on a chair and just all talking, kind of thing.
Pajamas, ready to go in my bed and sleep.
And I thought that was fantastic. The way, just your presence, the way you were presenting it was so relaxed, and so it would make people want to listen because it was like, oh, well, she's just hanging out with us, you know. There's no suit and all that kind of stuff going on, and that was pretty cool. Well,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to do a part two with you because there's still some other things that I wanted to find out about Krystle herself. We got caught up in the other stuff, but there's still, I mean, you came out in that as well, but I still want to find out some more about Krystle.
I
Okay?
guess we have about 10 minutes left, so I love that.
Okay.
I love walking up. I love soccer. I don't care when nobody tell me. I like walking up. So if y'all got a problem with that, too bad. The reason I'm calling it is, and I know you have to keep a certain persona when you are working in a particular industry.
Mm-hmm.
When I go out, I like to be able to be out. I'm not going to be, stripping down naked or anything like that. No, that's not happening anytime soon. But I want to go and have a good time. And that is a big part of me. I danced formally for several years, over 10 years. From the time I was 17. First with Bars Dance Theater and then with NCF.
Okay.
Modern, jazz, African, contemporary, all sorts of different styles. I at least tried, and same thing, if I try it and this isn't for me, well, I tried. But I do like experimenting a lot. So you might see me start and stop things, but until I find what works for me,
right.
I consider myself a beginner's artist because I've never formally trained in the school of YouTube. But I love art, and for anybody who wants to see any of the work I've done, it's on my Instagram. And
okay.
So I have a Facebook page, Krystle's Corner, and on my Instagram, I'm Krystle Pixie. So I love to paint. I love to draw. I think I'm okay.
I have to check it out. I didn't know those sites, so I now have to go check those out.
So when I go on vacation is when you mostly see a lot of my stuff, because when I'm working, it gets really hectic and busy balancing work and everything else that I'm involved with.
Right.
So unless I get a spurt of energy from God knows where, my art is when I'm on vacation and I actually get to sleep and rest.
Right.
Able to find the energy to just sit down, and because for me, art is when I catch a vibe.
Okay.
I don't catch a vibe when I'm tired.
Right. Right.
That's the truth. And I don't like to force it either, because if I don't feel it,
And based on what you just shared, that latter part, I'm glad that we got that in, because a number of years ago, I was doing fashion jewelry. So I created my pieces, and I remember going to sell some at a social club, service club I was part of, and another member of the club who's an accountant or did accounting in the family business said to me, "You did this?" And I was like, "Yeah," because I'm thinking, well, what about it that wasn't, And she goes, "Well, accountants aren't supposed to be creative." And I went, "Well, no one told me that, so I'm sorry, but I've always been creative." So I kind of like, y'all need to tell me these memos in the beginning.
I think being creative in an industry like this is important because it helps bring you out to the mundane, and then you get to see your job in a much more creative way. So then you look at it instead of just what's in the textbook. You kind of try to look at it outside of the box. So I try to bring a lot of my personality into my field of auditing.
Okay, I've been warned very early in my career, do not use the word creative in accounting. And I just want to make sure that we make it clear that we're not talking about creative accounting.
No, there's a difference between being creative and how you get the job done.
Right.
And accounting, which can border on fraudulent. So
good. So we want to make that clear.
No, because as an auditor, sometimes the balance is a lot of the things we recommend are textbook recommendations that come from overseas and how the US might do it. But we're here in the Caribbean. So it's like the transition when we transition to international financial reporting standards, for small and medium-sized entities. I thought that was so important because it recognized
that there's a difference.
Company and a small company cannot have the same.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. We might have, this is how it should be done. But when it's practically applied, if you don't try to find a way to work with your client in a way where you're keeping with the rules, but still getting the business to run in a practical sense,
right,
then you're going to lose people.
Yes.
We have to keep discussing these things to make sure we don't cross any lines.
Yes.
To also make sure that we are serving our clients in a practical way. Correct. That still keeps you in line with best practice.
Yes, 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 for sure. Right, so I've heard about the walking up, I've heard about the dancing, and I have seen the singing in another place.
No, I hate singing. If you want me to raise the dead, like, sure, but no, I am a horrible singer. Oh my God, that was purely for fun and entertainment.
It achieved its purpose. It was very entertaining.
I have no qualms. I have no qualms about making an idiot of myself if it's going to help cheer people up at a time where there's so much bad news. There's just so much bad news.
Yes.
So if making myself an idiot is going to help put a smile on somebody's face, I am all for that.
Good. Good. So that's great. So thank you so much, Krystle, for joining me this afternoon in the Curfew Lime. And we look forward to maybe linking up with you again on some other topics, because as I said, you have so many things we could talk about. This one, I think, might be our longest line that we've had, but there were so many interesting things that we needed to cover. So we're just happy that you were able to join us this evening. So that's it for the Curfew Line for today. We hope that you have learned quite a bit. Certainly check out Krystle on Facebook and follow her in all the different spaces that she is on, including now, we know, Instagram and her paintings. So we're going to see her creative style there. Make sure you continue to follow Chat Barbados on Facebook, on Instagram, and Channel House Audio Tours on Facebook. And I'm Deborah Grant, the Master Chatter, being your host this evening. Have a great time.